Welcome to another Demarcation Media lighting kit review. Today we're going to be looking at another Funwhole set. Yes, I know, move past the name. This is their Steampunk City Bridge. Now I looked at one of their Steampunk sets a long while back when they were first kind of getting into this, getting out there, getting their name known. And I thought it was pretty cool. There was some weirdness to it. Some of the design was a bit flimsy, and some of the ways that they put the wires in was just a bit of a pain. But now I'm going to be looking at their newest entry, and I'm pretty excited because they have significantly improved since I looked at that last set. That was their Steampunk airship. I'll put the little card up in the corner if you want to go and watch that. But yeah, they've significantly improved. They've added new parts to make the wires actually flow through the bricks better, so I'm pretty excited. Big thank you to Funwhole for sending this along. I will put links to all of their stores and whatnot in the description, and there will be a discount code for you to use as well. Okay, we come to my least favorite part of any Funwhole review first. The figures. The figures suck. Let me break down why. First of all, I have actually brought these figures to various kids. I've let a handful of kids play with them, mess with them. None of them liked it. The first thing they all say is, why does his face have a big lump at the bottom? Which, for that, I don't have a good answer. Why does his face have a big lump at the bottom? He's got this big... All of them have this big lip around the bottom, which means the top of the head is narrower because this bottom part is about the width of a Lego minifigure head. So that means these parts can bobble around on top. That's no. I mean, if kids don't even like playing with them because of that, that really should say something. And then the arms are ridiculously skinny. They're actually really easy to break. If you accidentally squeeze this wrong, snap, it breaks off at the joint. Also, they don't just move up and down. You can't just have him straight up. It moves inward as you move up. So if you want him to hold something straight, he actually ends up kind of holding it across his body. This is made worse by the fact that the hand is angled inward, which the hands look pretty bad as well. The print work is fantastic. Whoever designs these torsos and heads is pretty good at their job, but it's just a shame it's wasted on these figures. So yeah, if you want to have him holding both hands up, he's covering his face. The feet are really small, and they do not provide much balance. You can't really balance him walking like at all, at least with Lego minifigures, because they're square. You can balance them like that. He just falls over. In addition, they can't really sit fully, which means not only can they not use chairs like normally, they'll be leaning weird, but also because their butts are so round, they can't even stay on the chairs that Funwhole provides in the sets. So there's really nothing redeeming about these figures. And I've heard people say, oh, well, that's just your opinion, and, you know, they're actually good. Some people like them. It's really objectively a bad system. It just is. Now, I keep pushing for them to do something similar to this because I think that more detailed, more articulated, more collectible figures would make their sets so much more desirable, because it's terrible to have such great builds and accompany them with such terrible figures. So this will forever be my complaint with Funwhole sets. Please upgrade to a system similar to this and ditch this faux Lego bleh system. And then here is the completed build, and I cannot stress enough how absolutely monstrous this thing is. Like, I'm seriously at the edges of my studio. This is by far the largest set I have ever built. And that's saying something, because I've built the Lego Lion Knight's castle, I built Rivendell, but this thing, end result size-wise, is so much bigger than any of those. Like, I'm still blown away. So first, I just want to get a few of my complaints out of the way. Some of the gears, especially the little ones, for the drawbridge on the inside can fall off. I did have to put a tiny bit of glue on one of them because it kept falling off the mechanism, and I have to take it apart and put it back on. So be aware, test the friction of those parts. If it doesn't feel that great, put a tiny dab of glue in there. And then for the instructions, there are these tubes on the sides. And at one point, when you are introduced to the first one, it says that it's a 72 millimeter, and then it also says it's 102 millimeter. That's confusing. They're all the same size in those steps. So I don't really know why it's backwards like that. And then my final big complaint is I still can't get over this. This hurts me. The sign up at the very top, it says City Bridge, except they swapped the T and the I, so it says Sty Bridge. Even the instructions show it being printed that way. The box doesn't, but the instructions do. That's very unfortunate. But other than that, the build process was pretty fun. You do have to be very careful because as you're building up these side structures, they can be fragile in the process. Be very careful in terms of, you know, how you're putting pressure on it as you go. The light piping on the underside of the main section can't fully connect. If you want the lights to be connected enough to glow well, they can't actually be plugged into the little clips that they're supposed to be plugged into because otherwise they just kind of fall off. The friction just isn't enough there. But let's go ahead and get in a little closer so you can see some of the details of this thing. So like I said, this thing is genuinely so big you can see the edges of my studio because it's just too big for my studio to contain it. And this thing is absolutely packed with all kinds of steampunk, just over the top detail. We have all these gears here. These aren't actually doing anything, these ones, but these ones down here are, and we'll look at that in a second, but they are a little bit overblown. Like we don't need as many gears here. It's just for looks. We've got piping. We've got a little light here. The river is all done in tiles, which is awesome. There aren't any massive base plates here, but there are some ones that are big enough to keep it, you know, doing what it needs to do. And then if we rotate to the other side, you can see some beautifully drum lacquered silver pipes there. That is awesome. I love the little windows. There's just so much like detail here. Now there's not a ton of interior space. You get a little room on this tower inside, and there's a little bit of room on the top of each tower as well as a bridge along the top. Now that is pretty cool, but there's no stairs or anything to get up to the top, which makes this a little bit like, oh, okay, so how are the figures getting up there? I don't love that. I do like the fact that you can put figures up there. I just don't love that there's no real way to get up there. There's also no real way to get inside the room with the controls. Also, the tube outside the controls likes to pop off pretty easily. So since this is a bridge and it's over water that might be traveled by boats, you are going to want to be able to raise this. So there are two little knobs on either side, and if you crank that, now you got to be careful because they can crank both directions and you can over crank it. So if you turn it towards inward, then the bridge will raise. Look at that. Goes up, goes up, goes up, and then stops about there. Do not over crank it again. You could let some small boats through there about this high. You could have a mast go through as well. And then you can crank it to go back down. And it'll kind of drop a little bit like that. Boom. Because they can get a little bit stuck. Then you can just crank it to raise it again. If it doesn't raise, then you probably have a disconnected gear inside. So be aware that that is a thing that can happen. There we go. We can get it to look a little nicer if we lower it slowly. That's pretty nice. It's a pretty slick feature. It is just a little fiddly. You have to be careful. Don't like crank them really hard one way or the other because you can mess things up. Really quick, I just wanted to show you the width of this bridge. You can fit a mongoose on here. You cannot drive a warthog. You can also drive a hiss tank here. That fits pretty much perfectly. The Cyberpunk car that they did does not fit. I don't have any other Funwhole's cars to test with, but yeah, that one in particular does not fit. It's just a little bit too wide. Of course, if you got stuff driving on the bridge, you don't want them driving across when the bridge is being raised. So if you go ahead and raise the bridge up, obviously nobody can drive there. So there is this little bar that goes across the driving area, the road, and on the inside it has a little printed piece that says stop. That's pretty cool. I think that's a neat little touch. They didn't have to do that, but they did, and there's one on each side. And now, this is the cool part, because this is a Funwhole set, and it wouldn't be a Funwhole set without some lights. So let's go ahead and light this thing up. Look at that! So there's lights shining down from the bottom. You get a little bit of light shining on the water. There's a light shining on the bridge, little like sign up top. There's lights shining up on the front side. There's lights on the inside. Wow. That is great. And then you get the light piping in the middle. I think the light piping is the most lackluster part of this whole build. It's cool, but the rest of the lights kind of outshine it. But having this up on a shelf, especially at this angle, seeing it kind of from below, being able to appreciate the sheer scale of this thing with the lights, oh yeah, that would be a truly impressive display. And if you happen to have a ridiculous amount of space, you can pair this with their other Steampunk sets and do a whole Steampunk layout, which would also be awesome. Also, something I didn't point out, the things holding up the light piping are actually remolded in brown of Lego's like track pieces that they released in the past couple years, which I thought was pretty neat. Those are nice pieces to get. There's a lot of really nice pieces in this set, if I'm being completely honest. A lot of ones that I think that would be very useful for just mocks if you decided to take this apart. Well, there you have it. That is the Funwhole Steampunk City Bridge. What an absolute monster of a set. I really like it. I do think it's very, very big. So if you don't have the right space for this, you're gonna struggle. It's also a little bit difficult to move. You do have to grab it basically underneath. Do not ever grab it by the towers. That will go very wrong. And as you move it, the tiles in the very center where the two pieces connect can kind of come disconnected a little bit. But yeah, I'm really blown away by this. This is insanely huge. Just the steampunk vibe, they've nailed it. My big disappointment is the figures as usual. I just imagine some nice steampunk figures, like that would be great. And then my other disappointment is the misspelled City Bridge sign. That's a big bummer. Hopefully they can fix that in other batches. I don't know if they're gonna catch it, but yeah, that's pretty rough. But seriously, if you're looking for something steampunk, if you want a nice conversation starter, if you want just a awe-inspiring display, this is what you're looking for. Now, this whole thing is only powered by a few AA's, so you can just pop the AA's into the battery pack under the bridge, which is hidden very nicely, and then just roll with it. The wiring was pretty easy to put together for the most part. There's a couple times you have to just put them through bricks instead of their special bricks, where they've got the slots for it, and that was a little bit like, I would have liked to see that not be done, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I will put links down in the description. There's not a ton of steampunk figures in terms of Lego and Mega, so I don't have a ton of options for putting figures on here, so I just kind of have to do what I can, which is why I was a bit extra disappointed this time around with the figures. But seriously, if the steampunk vibe is your thing, this is the centerpiece that you need. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.